Hello everyone, and welcome to the 281st episode of Analyzing Evil, featuring Death from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. If you like my videos, consider signing up to become a patron over on Patreon, where you can get access to my videos ad-free, uncensored, and a day early for as low as $2 a month. Well, it's been quite a while since I released the episode on Big Jack Horner, and since then a lot of you have been asking for an episode on death, so I figured it was about time we revisited possibly one of my, and I'm sure many of your favorite animated films ever made, to talk about a character who, despite the immense presence it has in this film, isn't exactly what it might appear to be on the surface. But before we get there, if you don't want to find yourself being visited by the Reaper yourself, you need to be watching out for your health in any way you can, which is something you'll easily be able to do with our sponsor for this video, Manta Sleep. Next to a healthy diet and exercise, sleep is the most important thing we need to ensure both our physical and mental health remain in good shape. But if you find yourself constantly waking up from unwanted light or noise disturbing your rest, then Manta Sleep has exactly what you need. Manta offers 8 different styles of sleep masks that gives all types of sleepers the eye protection needed to make your dreaming hours as peaceful as possible. And all of Manta's masks feature unparalleled adjustability, a premium feel, and pro-nap movement that can soothe your eyes as they protect them if you choose their steam or cool masks, or even your ears with a sound mask and its built-in Bluetooth headphones, which is the one I personally use, and I can't sleep without now that it's improved my quality of sleep exponentially. But if the sound mask isn't for you, then a couple other products Manta offers can easily help keep your ears protected while you sleep: their white noise machine and earplugs. The white noise machine is this compact little device that features tactile movement, so you can easily adjust between 15 different sounds, even while in the dark. And their earplugs are the most comfortable and soundproof I've ever used, and they work hard to block out all those little sounds that keep you awake, but not so much that you can't hear your alarm when it's time to get up, which is nothing short of perfection. With an amazing selection of products in such high quality, Manta is hard to beat, so I encourage you to browse their website and pick through all the different features of the products they offer to find the one that best suits your needs, or the needs of someone dear to you that could use a little more rest as well. As no matter what your sleeping schedule is, I guarantee anything Manta has to offer is only going to improve your quality of sleep in ways you thought weren't possible. With summer in full swing, it's more important than it ever was to get some protection from light and sound. So if you're like me and the slightest sound and tiniest pinprick of light disturbs your slumber, head over to mantasleep.com and use the code VIOLET at checkout to get 10% off your order and enhance your sleeping experience today. Thank you, Manta Sleep, for sponsoring this video. Now without further ado, let's begin. Puss in Boots has lived a legendary life, one full of adventure, wonder, and admiration that has seen him bouncing from high to high as he journeys through lands filled with magical monstrosities and whimsical creatures. He's won the love of women, the respect of men, and the adoration of children everywhere. But such a dangerous life inevitably takes its toll on anyone. Luckily for Puss, he's a cat, and in this fantastical world he lives in, that means he has 9 bona fide lives to protect him from mortal danger. And so with nigh invincibility on his side, the life of a hero was essentially a cakewalk for this fearsome feline. But 9 is quite a small number, even when we're talking about lives. And as with all finite resources, they were eventually going to run out, and so they nearly did, with Puss in this film clinging to only one last life after the opening events of this story. But that's not so bad, right? I mean, most of us only have one life to work with, and Puss has had the privilege of surviving 8 deadly experiences by virtue of his species. So if anything, the fact that he still has one life left is extraordinary, and it would have been if Puss wasn't the cat he was. Puss in Boots laughs in the face of death, and he always has, because for him, death was something illusory, something far off in the future that he didn't need to worry about in the slightest, because why should he? He had 8 safeguards attached to him that ensured any threats to his life were about as threatening as a bruise. But it's that very attitude that nearly brought about his untimely demise. In a world like the one Puss lives in, one where all mythic and spiritual creatures aren't the stuff of legend, but realities, that means that the representatives of the most fundamental forces of nature are real as well, including death, who Puss had deigned to laugh in the face of for so very long. And so when Puss had expended all but one of his lives, death decided it had finally had enough and chooses to come for him. The moment that death reveals who it is to Puss is one of the most harrowing moments ever animated. For it's here that this legendary hero is faced with something he's never encountered before, an unstoppable, immovable object that cannot be defeated. And that dread and panic is shown to us so expertly, it raised the hair on my arms, and likely yours, in tandem with Puss's. But death isn't just terrifying here because of the scrape of his sickles, the insidious nature of his smile, and the terror behind his blood-red eyes. It's the fact that he is that unstoppable force of nature, a creature that no one, not even the most magical of beings, has managed to outrun yet. finality made manifest, who cannot be outsmarted or outfought, only delayed. That being said, though that indeed is what death is, in truth, it's not a monster. It never has been, and it never will be. That might seem like an odd thing to say considering the beast we're presented with here in this story, but that's because this beast is not actually a beast, but a creation of none other than Puss in Boots himself. Death is an ever-present, all-consuming force of nature that is conducting its very important work every second of every day, all across the universe. Because that's true, the death we see here can in no way be the only manifestation of death, as it must be constantly working to usher souls on to the other side. And because that's true, I highly doubt that death goes from deathbed to deathbed carrying sickles that specifically have the 8 lives of one cat carved onto them. With that in mind, what death is here is but one of its many faces, and there are 2 particular reasons why it's chosen to wear this particular face here. Death in this story has come to punish Puss in Boots, to punish him for being so arrogant and flippant with his lives to the point that he's been granted the status of a living, breathing affront to death itself. And because it has come to punish him, it hasn't come wearing a kind face, but the face of absolute terror, a monster who's not there to guide him to the afterlife, but to drag him to the other side by any means necessary, which ties into the second reason why it looks the way it does here, because death knows that Puss, the supposedly fearless hero, fears it more than anything, and so from his fear, it has been granted a form that strikes terror into the hearts of all cats, a wolf. The ultimate canine predator and classic mortal enemy of all felines, who is powerful beyond reckoning and who knows no limitations, which means that Puss quite literally created this specific incarnation of death through his own actions. It looks like a villain, like a creature stalking its prey who delights in torment and bloodshed, one whose signature whistle only adds to the oppressive atmosphere of fear that it creates with every step that it takes. But in reality, it's not. It just is. But Puss, through his arrogance and fear, has made it into this monstrosity, and that's part of the beauty of Death's character in this film, as in truth, the only evil in this story, aside from Jack Horner, is the disservice Puss did to his own life by being so callous with the blessing that each one of his lives were. He didn't spend them after living these lives in any meaningful way. Each and every one of them were taken from him as he selfishly pursued the life of a legend and hero to satisfy his own hubristic need to be this larger-than-life figure. And as Des said, Puss didn't value any of his lives, so why doesn't it just do them both a favor and take this last one now? After all, his life is ultimately hollow and lonely, filled with the superficial and vapid love of the populace, while never truly enjoying any sort of real connection with anyone other than his adoring fans. He hurts everyone he loves, or who loves him, for the sake of the legend. And he runs from anything good and pure that may give his life a purpose beyond what he believes he needs to satisfy his own desires. And indeed, that's what Puss does here in this story, runs from the truth of himself and what he has made his life into. But the truth has a way of catching up to us eventually, and so it does at the climax of this film, where death has come once again to challenge the creature who challenged it in so many ways to one last fight, a fight that Puss can only delay but never escape, so long as he remains the cat he has been all these years. But in taking this journey to escape his fate, Puss was actually able to defeat death. Well, not permanently, but to reconcile his past mistakes of living his life so frivolously by coming to understand that it's not the adventure that makes the man, but the people he chooses to take along with him on that adventure. And here, finally understanding that for the first time, Puss, rather than running from death and fear, chose to fight for his life with courage, thus redeeming himself in the eyes of a being he had made into a monster, and at last earning for himself a life worth living. And at this end, after all we see of death in this story, we find that death was not a villain, but an antagonist, one who needed to show a cat who laughed in the face of death that it was no laughing matter, and that we can either make it into a monster or accept it for what it is, a natural part of life that isn't so terrifying if we live our lives as meaningfully as we can, and accept that our own mortality allows us to appreciate the time we have with the people we're spending it with in the ways that we and they should and want to spend it. And in knowing this, perhaps the next time death comes to call on Puss in Boots, it'll be at the tail end of a life well lived, a guiding hand waiting to take him to what lies beyond, and not a malevolent spirit out for blood, wearing a cloak of evil. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Analyzing Evil, and I hope you've enjoyed. What are your thoughts on death? Did I miss anything? Let me know down below and leave a suggestion for a villain you'd like to see featured while you're at it. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up button, and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. A big thank you to all of my subscribers, my patrons, anyone who's decided to honor me with a super thank, and especially our Dark Lord patrons, Elijah Kai VA, Mr. Awesome, Louis Dockstater, Just Keeping It Real, Lachlan, Atris Rain, Seltsopa, Him Downstairs, Oh God Why, Beat Boop, Lorenzo Antonino, Eli Livingston, Moondog, and Roberto Hernandez. And a most vile thank you to those whose names you're seeing on screen now. Join the channel's Discord server and subreddit to interact with myself and the community, and follow me on the social media platforms listed below to keep up with the channel. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you soon.